me start with like a story Jimmy Buffett told us. And we were fortunate enough to have an amazing lunch with him before he passed away. And for us, it was an opportunity to ask like an amazing musician about how he got so deeply involved in like the business side of his empire, which was like Margaritaville. And at the time, you know, he was towards the end of his life, and he was like, I'm building retirement communities that are like for my fans. So if you're like 80 years old, but you don't want to go to some shitty retirement home, you want to go to the Margaritaville experience retirement home. Like, I'm always serving my fans and always thinking about like businesses that are like extensions of who I am. And so, you know, with Venture, the more that we spoke to people, whether they're on the investing side or founder side or operating side, the more we felt comfortable about like a lot of the things that made people great, you know, in those spaces were things that were inherently things that made us successful in music.
Alex, I am incredibly excited to be here with you today. I've been looking forward to this, and
Same.
I know you're really busy, and you're juggling 2 whole businesses, which I'm excited to talk to you about. So thank you for making time for this.
Yeah, this is stoked. I'm a big fan. I was saying earlier, I've listened to literally every episode except for the last one yet. It
means a lot. I want to start with music, and I love music. I'm obviously like mega amateur about it, but I've been a huge fan of your music for a long time, and I always think it's really interesting to learn about the creation of songs. I like love watching some of my like favorite artists talk on YouTube about like how songs came together. Yeah. And so I want to just like go through a couple of like my favorite songs of yours and just like hear about like.
By the way, we just did like a photo shoot yesterday, and with this amazing creative director, Aiden, and he's shot like so many of like the creative campaigns around like all of these artists that, you know, I'm a huge fan of, and, you know, fashion stuff. And it's so funny talking to him because he gives you this like, they give you like this unfiltered perspective where you're like, wow, that photo turned out really good. And you're like, there was a zebra on set. You know what I mean? Right. And the zebra almost killed Travis Scott. And then you're like, whoa, like you should start a show that just talks about this stuff.
Well, it's so foreign to people. I mean, like, because, you know, you hear a song that's like, just like a premium song, and you're just like, how the hell did this happen? Like, what even goes into it? And for most people, you just don't even understand what the process is.
And I don't think there's like a single song in existence that doesn't have like an insane story. Even if it starts out in one day and it's done in one day, there's like 8 months that precede it that are like
which
insane.
Actually makes you wonder, like on that point before we go into songs, like, can you create a great song formulaically, or does it need a story?
I don't know if it needs like a story all the time. Sometimes like lately, Drew and I have just been making songs. We're just like, I love this. It just feels good. I'm not thinking about, you know, the narrative of the song so much or the context. It's just like, I love these lyrics. I love how they feel to me, but it's not like rooted in some like personal story necessarily. But I do think like the creative process is not ever formulaic, you know, like the songs never start in the same place or the same way. I think there's like creative things you can keep in mind, like how you go into a session and the best ways that you feel like you can get to some level of creativity. But like, I know we talked about this before at some point, but like, you know, doing the Chris Martin song, like I remember him coming in and he was literally like telling us about
like this.
Something just like this. And he was telling us about, you know, his creative process. And he was literally just kind of like, they're just sent down like from above. And we were like, I remember sitting there being like, what is this dude talking about? Like, we're just like, we just no, it doesn't. We we spend time in the studio and we like get the songs done, and then now, like, you know, whatever, 5 years later, we're like, he was totally right.
That's funny. Like, I love Chris Martin. I mean, I think Chris Martin, I think he's like a real artist. Like Coldplay is obviously like this, on some level, it's like this mass produced, like for everybody thing, but he's a real artist.
No, I think they're one of the greatest, you know, bands ever. You know, obviously getting to know him and the band and understanding like how they operate and work. I mean, it's like nothing short of, you know, like pure, you know, magic and the respect they have. And, you know, the music obviously kind of speaks for itself, but like there's so many things that go into consideration when Chris and the band like move forward with the song.
I went to a Coldplay concert recently, like a couple months ago. And I hadn't been to one since I was like 17, you know, like in high school in St. Louis. And it was awesome then. And it was like freaking awesome now. Yeah. And I was just like, you know, the whole place is vibing.
Dude, it's insane.
Your song comes on, you know, something just like this gets played there. Yeah. Stadium's going nuts. I don't know if you've been to a Coldplay concert where you've seen this happen. And you're just like, this is cool.
It's so cool. And I'm always like, Chris, why can't we go on stage with you? We would love to be up there.
Why can't you go up there?
But I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's always, I think he's offered in the past, and like we had our own show somewhere else and stuff. Well, and I think now he's just like, we're just going to do it without you guys.
He's like, we're good at it.
Yeah, we're good, which is totally fine. And like, I love when, you know, they're on tour. I get videos like every day from somebody, you know, being like, here's your song being played. And it's just like, that's the coolest, you know, thing. It's like, hey, I'm sleeping in someone else's doing the work. That's why collaborations are awesome.
Yeah. So how did that song happen?
Okay, so there's like a few parts to it. So, we've been fans of Coldplay forever. I think most electronic artists would say that like a Coldplay collaboration is like top 3 artists they would want to work with for so many reasons, because their music kind of lends itself to this like electronic energy. His vocals are obviously just incredible, and the band's just iconic. And so, they were always on our like, hey, they ever want to get in the studio? We're so down. And they were like not down, down, I think, for most of the time. And then our manager had reached out, and I think they were like, yeah, we'll float it to Chris or something. But then I think before a show one day, they were like listening to Closer backstage, and Chris, I don't know, or the band was like, this is good. This is interesting. Like I'm down to get in the studio. I don't think they realized we had already asked. And so like literally get a call from their manager, Dave. I'm not sure if he still works for them. And it was just like, Chris is going to be in, LA next Tuesday or something, like wants to get in the studio. The guy's down. And we were like, I will drop. You will find it in Antarctica. That's what it takes to do this. Went to the studio. I think it's called the Woodshed in Malibu, which is a beautiful studio, way nicer than any studio we've ever worked in. Got there at like 3 p.m. or something like that. And I think we sat there for like 2 hours alone with his like audio engineer, but we're just kind of like waiting. We're like, I don't even want to touch anything. What do we do? Should we start working on our own stuff? Should we like get ahead of this song? And then he just walks in, and it's like, there's only a few people on the planet that I feel like would like have that gravity when they walk in, and he just like comes in like a tornado of energy and just was like, hey guys, what are you working on? Never break up. This is how song, and you're just like, hold my
wow.
Yeah, this is insane. And funny enough, like we sat there probably for like 4 hours, trying different things out, kind of like false starts. I think that's like a big part of the creative.
Like the 3 of you basically? Or?
Yeah, it's 3 of us, and they're and his sound engineer, who's like, I think been with him, Bill, who's been with him forever. Shout out to Bill.
Probably amazing.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he just like, I think again, it's like sometimes being in the studio is like having a presence without like interrupting anything. And Bill is great at that. And we're just like throwing chords out and lyrics out and different little ideas, and nothing's really sticking. It's like we kind of like get started on a melody, and it's like, like let's move on. And then eventually he's like, I gotta go put my kids to sleep, pick them, and we're like, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, we're done here. Like he's not gonna come back, and that sucks. That was our shot at a Coldplay song. And so he leaves for like 3 hours, but he's told us he would come back. And we're just kind of like, is he gonna come back or not?
Out there.
And we were going through like stuff. We're like, we got to find something or do something that like when he comes back. And we found these like chords that became something just like this. And we were like, this feels interesting in the context of like what a Coldplay Chainsmokers song might sound like. Yeah. And he finally comes back.
Hopefully in this segment right now, we'll play that just like clap bump.
It's just the piano, and
it's so good.
It was like not complex by any stretch. And Chris comes back and he's like, you kind of feel like he's also like, we got to get something, you know what I mean? And we play him these chords, and he's like, that's good. I like that. He just was like, give me a mic. Literally like grabs a mic and dances around what like would be the size of this backyard. And
really, he's dancing. You guys are just together. He's dancing.
We're sitting there like, almost like the energy's like, don't move. And you know what I mean? Like it's like, if we move, we're gonna disturb what's happening right now. And he literally like lays down like what is probably like 80% of the core of the song, and
the lyrics come to him just naturally.
Literally, he's just like stumbling like over each lyric, and then just like progressively it's just pouring out of him, and probably in like an hour. And we're just like, holy shit!
Wow,
we have a Coldplay song, and we were all like so jacked up. I mean,
could you have given him that beat before you had met him, or did you need that session with him to get that sort of like, that progression?
I think we needed that session. I know there's plenty of collaborations that happen, over email and digitally. And I don't think that's like, you can't not have success that way. But I think like, he wanted to get to know who we were. We wanted to get to know who he was. I mean, for us, just getting in the studio with him and being a part of that was like one of my life's greatest moments. And I think like it was important to like understand what he wanted to like sing about, like what thematically like stuff was speaking to him, like, and so, we could have sent him 40 beats, but like, would he actually listen to them? Would he like have the intention and focused as he went through them? And I think like the energy in the room had like built up over the course of this day, where there was like pressure, but like also this like expectation where we were just like, we're gonna get, it's like kind of like willing it into existence. So, I think we always try to get in the rooms with people, but like you also can get in the rooms with people and recognize quickly that it's like, this is not meant to be. So it's scary in that way.
Yeah. You mentioned Closer during that, which is another really great collaboration. How'd that one happen?
That one's a really crazy one. So we were in tour in Illinois on our Friend Zone tour, which was like one of our first bus tours ever.
Yeah. This is when, like
This is probably like 2015 or something like that.
Yeah.
And on this tour, there's this great artist who's still around, Louis the Child. And after every show, we had set up like a really shitty production room in the back of our tour bus. So we'd be like kind of drunk and tipsy or whatever. And we'd like go, after the show, everyone would like pile into the bus and kind of like blast music and dance. And in the back, people were always like, we would be like writing songs, producing things. And we hadn't really like, Louis the Child was on like 3 or 4 shows with us, and we were big fans of theirs. And we were like, let's get in the back and like work on something. And Drew had, essentially like this song had been like floating around in his head for like 2 or 3 years. He had these chords that his hands, as he would say, like always just landed on the piano. And I think any piano player says that like you kind of like there's just like certain chords your hands just like gravitate toward when you sit down. And they were the Closer chords. And he kind of had this like loose idea of lyrically of a song, but like didn't really functionally have like any idea of how to like build it out into like the full track that it is today. And so, in this back of this bus on like, at like 2 a.m., Louis the Child and all of us are just kind of like jamming, and they came up with like a lot of like some of the electronic line, because it was much more like, I don't want to say acoustic, but like ballady at this point in time. And they were really good at kind of this like, I don't know, like bouncy electro style. And like a bunch of the song, like I would say like half the song kind of came out in the back of that bus. And we were all like, this is cool. Like, I really like this, but like tipsy, it's late. You're just kind of like, cool, I don't know. And then the next day, I think we were in Utah or something. We're like, let's play that thing from last night. And there's like a bunch of random friends from the area on the bus. And they're just like, what the fuck is that song? You know what I mean? And we're like, oh, you like to like play it again. Yeah. And we like played it like 25 times.
In the same format. You didn't change it at all from the tipsy night.
Yeah, really didn't change it from the night before. Yeah. And we were just like, oh,
it's actually good.
Huh. Like we like this, but I didn't like, it didn't scream things to me. And the other thing that it's worth mentioning is, and shout out to Sean Frank, he's another great DJ producer that has helped us some countless songs. Drew had never sung anything up to that point in time. Yeah. And we didn't have any singers on tour with us. So he was just like, I'll just sing it as like a scratch demo, and hopefully, we'll find someone else to replace me. And so when we were playing it for people, it was like Drew singing, and they were like, damn, you don't like sound pretty good, like at least in the tonally in the world of this song. And it was just wild because Sean, like to Drew, and like, shout out to Sean, he was just like, I can make you sound good. Like, I know you're not a singer, but like I have like enough experience in like Pro Tools and Auto-Tune and all these things where I can make you sound amazing. And he did. And like I remember sitting there like for like a few shows in the back of us where Drew just cut every line over and over and over and over and over again. And it like till it started to really like glow. And it was just a wild experience. I remember we sent it to our manager and a few people, and they were like, it was weird because you send stuff to people and you don't know what their reaction's going to be. And our manager was like, cool. You know what I mean? Like, and we were like, what? Like, this song's amazing. The song, like, the story just goes on forever, because, like, then it was about, there's so many feature issues and things like that.
I'm curious what this is kind of a funny question, but, like, what the impact of, like, drinking or drugs can have on creativity. I feel like in, like, tech circles, a lot of the world, though, there's lately been this real push towards no drinking, no drugs, like a very sanitized physiology.
Totally.
Which I'm all for. I love going to bed early. Yeah. I love feeling good. I just also, of course, know that a lot of creative people, I think both actually in tech, in music, in other fields, like I do think that like alcohol and drugs play some role for a lot of people.
100%. I mean, I think it's like, can obviously loosen your inhibitions and kind of like lead you on a path of coming up with ideas or doing things that you would like. Him singing might have like been a result of like having a few beers that night where he was like, fuck it, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if anyone's around me thinking that like my voice sucks. I'm just going to do it. I think there's like a double-edged sword. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think like, I mean, Drew's like the epitome of health now. I think like we've both been very conscious over a career of like, maybe we need to tone this down a little bit. I've actually never, my fun fact is I've never done coke ever in my life, which surprises a lot of people. Yeah. We're in Vegas a lot. We played, sometimes 4 or 5 weeks of shows in a row. Drugs and alcohol are a big part of like music culture historically. Yeah. And I think that, there's an obvious reason why, you're dancing, you're having fun, you're partying, those, the associations with that.
I know part of art even. Like I think a lot of like writers and
totally. I mean, it's kind of this like tortured self thing that like, it's like cool to smoke a cigarette, look cool. People smoking cigarettes look cooler for some reason. I don't know why, but it's like definitely going to give you cancer. And there's something dangerous and badass about that, like the self-reverence. But, we notice with ourselves is that like in the studio, the same way that it can like enable you to have take a little bit more risk or step outside your comfort zone. Yeah. It also becomes like a dependency where you think like, oh shit, I can't write unless I'm anything great unless I'm tipsy or drunk or having a drink or something like that. Yeah. And that's like definitely a slippery slope. And I think that goes for like anyone across anything. You could make that case for like, marathon runners, it's like, unless I run 20 miles today, I'm going to be in a terrible mood, And I think, finding that balance is really, really important and something that we've definitely thought about. I mean, the idea of writing music during the day used to be like, hell no. Right. You know what I mean? And like we write at night because that's when it's a vibe and it's cool and you can kind of like cut loose. And now we're just like, no, I like the focus of the daytime and coming here and having like the intention of just being like, we're making music no matter what.
It's like writing music, like caffeinated. Like I always think that like, like after my second cup of coffee, I have like a few hours where I'm just like, my brain is at its absolute peak. But totally. It's productive peak. It's not creative peak, but it's productive peak. But I do wonder if you get to a place, even in creative endeavors, where you probably could translate that caffeinated morning buzz into music.
No, totally. I mean, I think, you have to come in with energy and inspire, but I think like anything, it's like, so much of the importance is how you start. Like I can tell like almost right away when we're going to have like a productive day versus a day where you're just like, we're just like hitting walls and just nothing feels inspiring, And I think it's really tough as you get older. Like when we started making music, like really no one like cared about us. Like no one bothered us, checked in. No one was like, hey, I need your eyes on this for 15 minutes or, this thing's happening over here that needs your attention. And so like, it was very much just like we were in the zone and no one really could take us out of it. And no one wanted to take us out of it. And now, we have to be so much more protective about that stuff. I don't know if you saw like our photo on our studio door, but it's like literally a set of rules that are like, before you come in here, like, think about this. Like, is what you're about to say really important? Like, are they in the middle of something? Blah, blah, blah. And because we found that like, it's so easy for someone to come in and just be like, hey, by the way, that, deal or that show, something happened. And you're just like, oh, God dang it. And then you're like, now I'm not.
It's Paul Graham's like great essay that talks about the maker schedule and the manager schedule, and like when someone's making things, you need to not distract them.
Totally,
it's like too expensive.
The flow state is very real. I mean, like Roses happened in one session. Yeah. Like a lot of Closer happened, even though it's like an idea that had been floating around, happened in one session. Don't Let Me Down similarly. So like there is something consistent about that, and you really like want to stay in that place. Most songs still you'll come back and spend 7 months refining and tinkering, but generally speaking, it's not like, hey, I got 10% of this song out today and then 20% tomorrow, and then there's just something. Drew has this great expression where it's like there's something changes when a song becomes like promiscuous, and it's like hissed into too many people before it's done, or too many opinions have weighed in on what people think the song
like
should
smooths out the good edge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like something, the magic just kind of like eroded away. And I think he's totally true. And I think like, I'm always like, let's not show anybody this thing, or like outside of really like,
especially when it's good. I think about this a lot. This actually happens for me in investing. It happens in other areas of life too, where you're uncertain, and you're asking for a lot of opinions. And then every once in a while, there's a thing that you're positive is good. Yeah. And you don't need to ask anybody's opinion, and you just do that thing.
I totally agree.
And you're like, I know this is right.
You have to like trust your gut. At the end of the day, like I'm a huge intuition gut guy. And that's why I'm happy to have Drew as a partner, because we kind of like, iron sharpens iron is kind of like how we think about it. But at the same time, like it's so easy to get talked out of something awesome. You know what I mean? And like, people don't always have the same context. Everyone's coming with their own, like experiences that are shaping the way they're thinking about something. So you might be like, hey, I love this, idea in nuclear. It's great. And they'll be like, this guy's like never going to work. And it's like, well, is that because you lost $20 million in like the last era of nuclear? Or are you actually looking at this with like a fresh eye that's not like tainted by any past experience? And I don't think anyone could say that or not in some way, shape or form, outcome of all of their experiences, some of all their experiences.
Just because I love these song stories, if we could do one more, Don't Let Me Down is another one of my favorites. Could you tell me how that came together?
Yeah, and it's funny because I like wasn't in the room when this song was written. It was a heartbreaking thing. I think I had like a doctor's appointment or something stupid that day. And so Drew and when we were in New York, we lived next door to each other on 23rd Street. And we did this session with Scott Harris and Emily Warren, both amazing writers. Emily's been is one of our closest friends now. I remember they came in and wrote, they were inspired by kind of like the XX, the band. I think they're headlining Coachella or close to it this year.
Yeah, they're great.
Incredible band.
Yes.
And they just have these incredible guitar riffs. And they wanted to, and at the same time, Drew had just been challenged by his girlfriend to make a trap song, or ex-girlfriend at the time. Now, she was just like really into like Yellow Claw and trap artists. And he was like, I can make this shit. You know what I mean? Like, and so he was like, but I want to combine like our indie approach. I love the XX. I love, I do like trap. I just haven't made any of it. And, I remember like getting there after everyone left and he was like, so we wrote this today. And I was like, good God. You know what I mean? I was like, what the hell? Like, it wasn't fully flushed out, but it was like it was good. Pretty damn good. I don't think he had the drop yet, but it was like coming together. And I was like, what's it about? And he was like, well, Emily wrote it about being lost at Coachella on drugs. And so, and like you're supposed to meet up with friends, but like that you can't find them, and you're like, don't let me down. And I was like, this is a really good song. And then we like had a flight later that night, and when we landed, Drew was like, I think I got the drop, and I was like, so it was like kind of a weird song for me because I was like, I really didn't have much of a hand in it at all.
We're gonna stitch that drop in here because I just played it in my head.
And then like and then I'm like, but I get to reap all of these amazing rewards for it. And obviously you didn't have Dea on the song at the time. We didn't have the finale. So a bunch of things like I did get to participate in, but like truly, I mean, that was a Drew, Emily, Scott special.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say that was really funny about this song is that I remember we were like, this is the song. It's going to be the next single, 100%. Everyone that heard it was like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. And then Drew's computer completely crashed. And I wouldn't say Drew's the epitome of organization. And so we were like, what do you mean? Like, you got a backup or like something? And he's like, I don't have anything.
It's gone.
And so we had to rebuild the entire song from memory, from scratch. My goodness. Which is kind of truly insane.
That's frustrating.
But he'll tell you that it was actually a really important exercise. And I think this kind of leans into a lot of things that Rick Rubin does really well, which is like, he didn't include anything that wasn't completely necessary the next time around. Like, he was like, I remember the guitar, I remember the bass, I remember the piano, I remember the drop synth I used, and the horns in the end. And it was like, instead of having like in the first version kind of had all these different layers trying to compensate for things and create more depth and texture and different things. And instead he was just like, I got to get this done. These are the main parts that I remember.
And the recreation came out better?
Better, I'd say. Because it was just like all of the bullshit that was like kind of removed from it. But I was also like, now we have a very thorough backup system. But it was, that was a scary one because it was like, what if we had lost that song forever?
Actually, this makes me wonder, if you had to go back and recreate like, similar versions of your existing songs right now. Yeah. And be like, make it sound mostly the same, but like, see if you can improve it.
Yeah.
Do you think you could? Like, could you go make Paris a little better if you just like spent a week on it?
I think like we've said in the past that like Don't Let Me Down and maybe Sick Boy are like the only two songs we've ever like finished that we were like, those are done.
I don't know how to make this better.
Like that is it. Every other song, there's like something
closer
you would turn
you listen
down
to it and you're like, I could change that to make it better.
Turning something down, turning something up. You know what I mean? Like just little, like tonally things you might sing a little differently. Nothing significant, you know what I mean? But like just like.
Do you do that? So when you play songs like live, do you improve them years after you've released them, and then the live version that you play is like you stick with an improvement?
I think like for us, like, yes, I think part of it is like DJ culture of just like, we want to surprise people. We want people to hear the song that they love and know, but like surprise them with a bigger drop or something that, just leans into like the experience we're trying to create at the show a little more without like ruining the actual, nothing's worse than being like, oh, it's my favorite song. What the hell is this for? First string he's playing.
Years ago, I went to a show of yours in Las Vegas daytime.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is like the most unbelievable energy ever.
Yeah, it's fun there.
It's a crazy energy.
It's fun there.
And it's got to be so fun. I can't even imagine what it feels like for you. I mean, I know anything, we all get used to anything. And so I'm sure after you've done it enough.
Every experience is new and different because everyone in Vegas is like trying to have the best time of their life, which makes that experience really fun for us. But like,
because you're just like, I'm trying to help this huge group of people just have like the best day of all time.
That's what you got to remember. I mean, like, it's been I've been playing there for like 7 years now, and you go in and you kind of be like, I mean, now we play like 400 or 500 shows there. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, this is like routine on some level. But for them,
like they like,
and you're like,
that's
our job.
Their time.
I'm not going to, sure, I'll throw in some tracks that I want to educate people on or I think are cool that maybe aren't popular yet. But like a lot of the experience is just like, hey, like we know what you're here for. I've been in your shoes. I just want to like party with my best friends and have a great day singing and dancing the songs that I love, maybe. And our job is to like present them in clever, fun, unique ways that make it interesting. Cause it's like, Vegas, I don't want to say like the people there are the lowest common denominator because that's not true, but like the habits of what as a sum of their parts, like they all like Mr. Brightside. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't like really like that song. And so, you're like, but then you'll play like, a song that's #1 on Billboard right now. And people are like, I don't know this song. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, damn, this song has not trickled down. And so it's amazing to watch how long it takes for a song to like permeate through culture to like reach that broad consumer base. And it's our job to kind of test those waters and challenge people, but like feed them things they know. Like we have this Closer edit where we start with Fast Car and then goes like the Luke Bryan version and then goes into Closer and like
that's
people
cool.
Love it, what I mean? Because it's like country fans now, people that love Fast Car, people that love Closer, and it like just when you think you know the song, you're like, oh, it's Closer, and then you're like, wait, it's Fast Car, and then it goes back into Closer, and it's like those are the fun things that you can do that like make a pretty straightforward experience more interesting.
You have this really rare trait, which is that you are both an artist and a real business person. Even listening to the way you've talked about like songs and music, part of it is like you got to go internal, make your own thing, not listen to anybody, like screw what other people think. Yeah. Which is to me like the epitome of an artist. And then you're also like, give people what they want. And we're here to like deliver like an experience for people and, listen to them and get their feedback, which is like the epitome of like a business person. And you're both.
Yeah. We're tormented inside.
Even the fact you spend half your time in, as an investor, half your time as an artist, that mix up, I think is uncommon.
It's awesome. I mean, I think like for us, when Drew and I met, I guess it's like almost 14 years ago now, like from the very first hang, it was pretty clear to us that we both had really big ambitions, but we were very aligned in how we wanted to achieve them. Like it wasn't like there was going to be some shortcut to success. We were like, we're both willing to put in the work and the hours, whatever it takes to kind of get where we want to go. But I think like the unique part, I mean, this was a crazy first meeting. I mean, first we were like, do you like Calvin Harris? And it was like, yeah, I like Calvin Harris. It was like, all right, cool. What else? What else do we have in common? But then quickly it was like our love for dance music, our background taste in music and things we listened to, entrepreneurial endeavors that we had throughout our youths that we didn't know each other. And then like we kind of like we're like, all right, let's do this. But also like when we are successful in building the Chainsmokers, like let's only use that as like the stepping stone to like building a bigger platform of opportunity and entrepreneurial efforts. We had no idea what those things were, but we were like from the get-go, we were both like, it's not just gonna stop here. Yeah. And I think for us, Drew used to sell Timberlands that he bought locally in China.
You guys are always entrepreneurs.
Always doing stuff and trying to, find ways to be creative and clever in business. And I think, music is such a like certain part of your brain and personality that like I do think part of us was like yearning also for something that was like a little bit more tangible and analytical and I don't want to say music's not competitive, but business is definitely a different type of competition or way of thinking about it. For us, we had started a tequila company, we had a TV and production company, and venture was kind of the last most recent bastion for us. And honestly, I didn't know what it was. I really did not know anything about venture. Like I remember a business manager was like, I got pinged by some company that wants you to, potentially invest and take some equity. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, what does all that mean? I understand what equity means, but like, what is, venture capital, like passive income. And he was just like, listen, you guys have been intelligent about how you've diversified your portfolio over the last few years. Like, this is certainly not something you have to explore, but if you are interested in investing in products or platforms or things that, you think are cool, let's try it, and like most of the time you're going to fail, but like maybe you get lucky and it'll work out. And, we began that journey, and very quickly it was like a part of our brain lighting up that like I felt like had been not dormant, but like underserved. And it was just so fascinating to be passively along on the ride with these founders that had these like super ambitious goals and plans for the future. And then, it kind of just like avalanche of things came from that.
Yeah. And then I'm sure it all like plays together. And, I'm sure there's a bunch of ways where, business makes your music better, or music can make your business better.
Definitely.
I'm sure there are also ways where you probably feel like tensions on certain days just because there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
An example I've thought about that I'm actually really curious to hear how you think about. Last year, I got into like hi-fi audio. It's just like, I've always loved music. I played music a lot like, as a kid growing up, and I love listening to music. And I started listening to albums. I find the experience of listening to a whole album like super different than just listening to a song.
Yeah.
And I feel like the difference is I'm listening to like an artist rather than like, a song.
Totally.
And so it's just like, who's this person? And then I get into like, their albums over time and like how they, grow and evolve, and you see what they pour into it. I chatted about this a bit before, but like one of my favorites is Bon Iver.
Yeah.
And like,
Amazing.
He's just had like, I can't say enough good things. I'm going to, mess it up. But like there was like the early days with like For Emma Forever Ago, where it's just like, it's all so raw and young, and he's talking about a breakup, and he's, I think his band fell apart. He's like in the woods with like a sad sounding guitar, but it's amazing. And then he gets into like his core stuff a few years later, like with his like self-named album.
Yeah.
And it's totally different, and there's band around him now. Then it got really experimental. Like he had like, IMI, before that there was 22 a Million, and those songs I'm just like, what fucking instrument is that? I don't recognize that sound.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Justin Vernon like the goat of goat. You know, I think we talk about this with like any artist out there. Like if Bon Iver is not in their like top 5, I would be like thoroughly surprised by that.
He's just so real.
He's like, I don't know cars, but it's like people that are like, there's cars, and then there's car lovers' favorite cars that are universally like, that's the car, he's like that for musicians. And I think, to your point about albums, which is something, we talk a lot about today, because there's just so many, it's changed so dramatically, the format by which we listen to music, fighting for people's attention. But I do think that like you would be hard pressed to find an artist in the history of music that like would stand the test of time that hasn't delivered an incredible album. I think it's like an absolutely essential part if you will ever be mentioned among the greats.
And those albums, they're just like so much has to go into an album.
Totally. Honestly. And I think like I know Billie Eilish talks about it a lot. She's just like, I try not to pick singles on my albums. Like the context is so important. Like she's like, I generally like kind of put off by when an artist is like, this song is my single, and and I think like Jack Antonoff kind of said it best actually, where he's like, singles are like without an album are like hallways that lead to nowhere. And singles can be a path to a story, which is fine, but you need
their story.
You need the story, you need the album. And I know that's like harder than ever in today's culture of social media and fighting for attention.
Well, it must take so much focus. It's not something that you could do in a day. It's not something you could even probably do in a week or a month.
No, you have to like, it's so
you have to
tough.
be tortured for a year, I bet.
Literally. I mean, I think we've, made some great albums in the past, and every album was like dramatically different in terms of our approach. Probably the thing that like felt closest to what like the artist that I really admired and respected it was, because you kind of do have to like unplug from the world. You're like, I'm going off into this mental space and physically, and I'll be back when I have something that I'm excited about, and I don't even know what that is yet. I need to figure out what that story is, what that visual line is, what I care about right now. What does it feel and sound like? I'm a huge Tame Impala fan. I think he does a really great job of this. But, for us, like during COVID, we rented a house. It was actually right before COVID in Hawaii. Shout out to Brian Chesky. We were friends of his. We had like met him through some events and stuff. And he was like, if you ever want to, one of the houses to rent an album, like let me know. And we were like, we'll take one in Hawaii.
That's good.
And we went there for like 4 weeks and just did mushrooms and surfed and wrote music literally every minute of the day. And it was like, this is what, we weren't taking meetings. We weren't getting interrupted by people. What it would take. Yeah, we were like locked in on this sound. Granted, it still took like 2 years to really finish that album. But like when we came back, we were like, this is you know what I mean? Like we were, like the road had been paved and we just needed to continue down.
Did the mushrooms help?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it can lead you, like similar to what we're talking about alcohol. It's like, there's like the perfect balance. Like it got out of our own way. It's like this ego killer thing. It like, I want to say it flattened, like, but when we were all, it's weird. If you do mushrooms with like a group of people, for some reason, like you all hit at the same time. And I don't know if anyone listening can agree with that, but like you could sit around with friends, you all take mushrooms, you're all different sizes, you're all different, biologies. But like categorically, like I guarantee you will all be like at the same time, be like, whoa. And I think that like got us and everyone that was there on this similar page where we were really connected and in tune with the things we wanted to say and write and the feeling we got from everything. But at the same time, you can like over-index and then you can get weird, start writing about really weird stuff. And I think, again, it's everything in moderation is important. But at that time, it was like, that was the feeling we wanted, have. We didn't want to come in there with angst and aggression from previous experiences. Like our Sick Boy album like was filled with like kind of like resentment towards like the press and media and how people perceived us. It was like this weird disassociating feeling, but it was weird because that was like an album that came together song by song in a different way. And then like literally like 8 songs into the album, we were like happy again. You know what I mean? And so like this album takes like this dramatically different tone.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
but I think that's what makes it authentic when it's like that.
100%. But we're just like, what a weird, like
it is weird when you're listening and you're like, oh, something happened.
Yeah. It was like, well, and so, I mean, it's definitely like a reflection of us and the timeline of our lives and the things we were experiencing. But, it wasn't like a moment like.
How do you balance like wanting to give people what they love? And obviously like, I'm sure a huge part of what drives you is like getting to make millions of people happy through music.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? And the type of music they love.
Yeah.
With, I'm sure you also have your own interests in music and your own desires to grow as an artist in different ways and to try new things.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure there's some tension there.
It's such a important question to ask because I think that there's so many who start this. Like first you like find a sound that's unique to you and people rally around it and are excited about it. You make this song and it becomes, not what you're synonymous for, but like, Tame Impala has a sound, Drake has a sound. Everyone has something that is identifiable where you're like, that's like, the vibe. And then you start seeing people being like, oh, it's just that again. Or like, let's see you make something else and try something else. Naturally, like that stuff, comments like that for some reason cut through. And we can make anything. Like we generally are like good producers and writers.
You know how to make all kinds of music.
And so then you find yourself in the studio being like, I'm not gonna show you. And in some cases it works. Like Drew's ex-girlfriend that was like, you can't make trap songs. You know what I mean?
Look at me now. Yeah.
But he found a way to fit in the context of our world, which I think makes sense. And so I think it's so important to like stay true to who you are. It doesn't mean don't experiment. It doesn't mean broaden your horizons and seek, and explore different opportunities. But I think it's really important to like stay and
it just has to be authentic, I think.
Exactly.
And like if you've changed as a person, I feel like the music should change almost.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean it's like I use this one synth, so I use this one synth in every song. It's just like, hey, like what's wrong with like people coming to us for this thing? Like Kygo, this is why he does so goddamn well. It's because people come to him for this sound and experience, and it's fucking awesome. And I think he really delivers that experience. I think the other, side of the equation is kind of just this idea of like, I'm a big Oasis fan and I love like the Liam and Noel Gallagher clips that you're getting from like the past. And he has this like epic clip that everyone should go see where he's like, your fans are idiots. He's like, they don't know what they want. He's like, that's what I'm supposed to deliver to them. Like I tell my fans what they want. They don't tell me, what they want. Obviously he does it in his Oasis way, which is like awesome and funny and reverent. But like, I also totally agree with him. And I think, you have to balance that. We had a song we just put out called Smooth that I love. And all of our fans, like while we were promoting other songs, were like, Smooth, release Smooth. We want Smooth. And like, we made Smooth. We're very excited about Smooth. It is very authentically us. I don't think it's like a departure, but like, I think we were also like thinking like, oh, this is going to be our biggest song because our fans are all asking for it. But like, it's not working out that way.
Yeah.
And so, whereas like we had released a song last summer called Addicted that none of our fans were stoked about, but ended up being, one of our biggest songs in the last few years and like appealed to a much broader audience.
So you're saying it's not that predictable what's going to hit?
I think it's just like, you just got to do what you trust your gut, kind of what we were saying earlier. Like, I don't think releasing Smooth was a mistake. I love that song, and I don't think releasing Addicted, which none of our fans wanted, was a mistake. But I do think it's harder to play Addicted in our shows because it doesn't fit in naturally with like the energy we've created, whereas Smooth is just 100% Chainsmokers. So I think you kind of have to like think about those things long term. And I think like Selfie is a great example of this. Like we made that song as a joke, put it on the internet just for fun. It took us like 30 minutes to do it. And then we have to live with the song for the rest of our lives, now. Like people expect us to perform it, talk about it, it's part of our history. We didn't think about that so much when we just put it online and the internet, which is forever. And so it's, you know, those things have consequences. But I think as the artist, it's your job to like absorb these things, understand why people are feeling a certain way. Like I think like what we should have taken away from the Smooth thing is that people like love when Drew's singing. They love the, you know, intimate storytelling of our music, and they like, you know, the hands up progressive house production. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like we should be like Smooth is the next song because they want it, you know?
Does good art require external inspiration? Like, can you make great stuff without some catalyst that's inspiring you, whether it's something good or bad that happened in your life, somebody that you saw and learned from and, you know, were, you know, really moved by what they did?
Yeah.
Can a great thing really just bubble up out of you, or is it always being translated from some inspiration outside?
I'm going to go with inspiration. Like, and I'm not saying that, like, going back to what we were saying about Chris Martin and like music being sent down, and you kind of have to, but I think it's when it's sent down, you have to be in a place mentally and creatively to like receive that, you know, message and inspiration. And usually those feelings are coming from all these experiences that you've had around you in your life. Could be a new love, could be a breakup, could be a movie you've seen, could be a conversation you just had. You know, a lot of the ways we start songs are like therapy sessions. It's literally like, forget music. What's going on? You know, like how's your home right now? Are you happy in your relationship? Are there any things that surprise you? Like, what's up with your family? What's it like being 35 or 40 in my case? Through those conversations, you're kind of led to places or thinking about things that, you know, impacted you. And I think like acting is a great example of this. Like you're literally like being hired to play the role of someone, not you, you know? And so like you are channeling all of these things you've seen and experienced to like try to kind of capture the essence of this character in this film. And I can't remember, I think it was like a PBS episode where someone was like, great acting, like to be a great actor, like go do everything else except act. Like go to as many art shows as possible, see as much theater as possible, listen to as much music as possible, read as many books as possible. And like, then you will have this like incredible library of context where you can pull from and hopefully create, you know, your own thing. And I think, you know, it's like kind of like the conversation about like large language models being like copyrightable outputs or not. You know, I don't think they really should be, to be honest with you.
Have you played around with AI music at all yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
It's incredible and scary.
You think it'll matter?
Like it will matter.
Do you think it will like, do you think we'll be listening to a lot of AI generated music?
I think we already are. You don't even know it. I think like
in the middle of your song, there will be clips that AI help, or there'll be parts that AI.
Maybe eventually. I mean, I think for us, it's just like shocking, you know, kind of, again, like what I like about AI tools right now for us is it just like keeps us in the zone, which is all we want to do. It's like, instead of getting caught up being like, fuck, we need to make drums now, which is the next part of this creative process for us. And it's going to take me like an hour and a half. It's like, never mind. I can prompt this thing to pump out. This might not be the final drums we're going to use, but it keeps us moving in the process of creativity.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we've gotten demos sent to us where it's like 15 songs that Drew's singing on. And you're like, no. Actually, Drew sounds pretty good on that. And I think that's a really cool application of it. You know, I think that if you were in a nightclub and I was playing an AI generated song, but it was good. Let's just say it was like a good song. I don't think anyone would know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like genuinely, like I think like if you can kind of do the like control placebo effect of like AI music versus human,
like,
maybe
it's pretty good.
Yeah, like would people really be able to like determine which one isn't? Do I think it's important? Like kind of like the similar you know, conversation about albums. Like I do think context matters. Like I think like, you know, albums provide context the same way that like a personality provides context.
That's how I feel. I mean, it's harder. I think a big part of what makes me enjoy music is knowing something about the artist and why the song, you know, the album happened. I don't think that's the only way to enjoy it. Like I also love just listening to something on the radio.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, you're out doing stuff. Like that's awesome too.
Yeah.
But like the best version of enjoyment of music, I do think the context helps.
Absolutely. And I think like it's interesting because we're kind of like fighting against that with TikTok in many ways. Like I think the way people are discovering music, which, you know, TikTok is a great tool for and platform for, is like they just hear something that sounds catchy and they're like, I'm gonna make a video out of this. Only recently did like Spotify create an integration where you can like click on the song that takes you to Spotify, so you can even see what this person looks like, you know what I mean, or anything. And I think like that step is definitely missing the mark in a lot of cases for like younger listeners now, where they're not taking that a step. They're just like, oh, this is a cool song. I'm gonna, you know, not even everything that goes viral on TikTok translates to streaming on the platform either. But I think, you know, those were some of my, that's why like music videos were so cool back in the day, because it was like, there they are, now everyone's so available, everything's out there. We're all like, do you even care? I just like the song, whatever, you know what I mean? But like, I think like the artists that have longevity force people to like ask those questions and kind of like seek them out a little further, because like, seeing what Justin Vernon's like as a human being, it like adds so much depth to his music. Bruno Mars, same thing. You're like, this guy's
absolutely
great dancer. You wouldn't know that if you didn't seek him out. He also has more number one songs. Like his average of number one songs is like 700% or something. Like 70% of the time he has a number one song, which is like, he's only released like 75 songs or something, 80 songs, which is like unbelievable statistic.
One of the things that's so cool, and I'm in San Francisco in tech, and so I don't get to think about this as much, but like outlier talent it's really a cool thing. That there are some people that are just that good at singing, that good at music, that good at entertainment. Like it's cool.
It's really cool. And also it's like really weird when you see someone having that talent working on the wrong thing, or like it's like so talented that they can't even like channel it correctly. Like I had terrible ADHD growing up, and I was like a super average student until like 10th grade, and then I figured out like making lists organized my brain, and like it was just a function of like I can do everything, I just like wouldn't spend enough time, and I love the experience of crossing things off more than I like hated having to focus, and it just made me like a war machine of like getting shit done. And I think like that's when you find someone that's like doing the thing they're supposed to do at the right time, it's like one of the greatest.
I feel like 30 years ago we like misunderstood ADHD as this like ailment, and it like turned out it's this superpower that just like needs like Cyclops glasses.
100%. I read a really interesting article the other day about like autism and how like a lot of like our favorite apps today used by most of society were created by people that like have some level of autism or Asperger's or something. And that like they are by function like tools that like kind of like aid someone that's like natural experience in public is like uncomfortable. So like Facebook or Instagram or all these things like are ways to kind of like create community, but in like settings that are like more consumable and comfortable. And I was like, that's really interesting thought that like we've like all the most powerful platforms were created by people that like wanted to create a platform that was like leaned more.
I mean, people think of ADHD as like inability to focus, and that's not what it is. It's disordered focus. And so it's just also it comes with mega focus when aimed correctly.
I mean, I like again, it's just like figuring out how to use those superpowers. That's like one of the biggest struggles that anyone has in life. Everyone has something they're inherently good at or have overcome some experience. I know like I think it was like Mike Moritz is like famous for asking for like what kind of trauma did you go through that's going to give you some sort of edge or chip on your shoulder or drive that like will just help you succeed against everyone else. I think everyone has those things. It's just like it is hard to uncover what those things are, and even harder to figure out like where to direct that energy, even if you do. I think like every day it's what motivates me, because I'm like, I never thought I'd be doing any of this stuff. So it's kind of like, let's keep going, I
also think it's where like self-awareness matters so much, and it's what lets you take advantage of your special attributes. And I think a lot of people want to be something that they're not, or they want to do something that's not natural for them. And so maybe this is like a good segue into like your investing work, where like you've also now built a venture firm and you're working really hard, very successfully at that. And it's a really different job than your music. And you and I were chatting before about like playing to your strengths and figuring out where you've got, an unfair advantage and focusing your time there. So maybe just to like start on the investing side, like how do you think about where you want to be playing and where you should like focus Mantis?
It's kind of an interesting approach in terms of that, like we are not consumer investors. Like I in fact leaned into like spaces that like we probably like have the least amount of business being invested in. And I've listened to, like I said, a lot of your episodes, and like every time I've finished listening to one, I'm like, what am I even doing? You know what I mean? Like if this guy isn't my competitor by virtue of the way we've set up our firm, but like, wow, like
you mean that you've set up in order to like be able to participate with everybody?
Like we want to be collaborative. Like I want to learn from everyone around me. I want people to think of us as an ally versus foe. I also think that's like was a big part of our success in music was collaboration. So I think it's like a natural extension into venture, and like over time we'll absorb these best practices and hopefully become the great investors that I listen to on the show every week. But I think for us, we wanted to lean into spaces like out of curiosity. Like I was much more interested in investing in cybersecurity than I was in more consumer stuff. Similar with AI, similar with health tech and deep and frontier technologies. I just thought like, if it's already such a gamble, at least gamble things that you care about, I think are really interesting. I also thought that I was like, hey, this is like there's tons of celebrities investing in soda companies. Like there's very few of investing in software.
Yeah.
That is an advantage and disadvantage in itself. Like, it's probably a reason why they're not doing that, because it's really technical, really challenging. And also like, what business do you have? Like a lot of success that we hopefully will have is just, an outcome of the value we're able to add. So like the second that we invest in a company and a founder's like, they just didn't know shit, they didn't do shit, like that was just a real waste of cap space. For me, like we're dead in the water. So we definitely like took a risk doing this. But I think, Drew and I are hustlers and we're just like, we're going to figure it out. Like we know, I have to believe that there's more things these companies need than what is currently available to them. And also like modern day times are changing so fast. Like the things like, when did B2B creators now, or B2B, enterprise software founders are like fucking creators on X now. Like they're making videos like Logan Paul does. And that's awesome. And so I knew that there was going to be things that we could offer that would be helpful. And we wanted to make sure that it was like commensurate with like what we were asking for. It's totally. Like, don't ask for 15% if you don't feel like you're going to add 15% value to the company. And then, the last piece was also just like the formation of it. And I say this a lot, but like, I want to, we've made so many great relationships over the course of our career with all sorts of incredible people that are all like leaders of these different areas. And to us, it was like, well, why not go raise capital from them, turn them into allies of the fund where we're using them for advice. We're like potentially leveraging the success of their platforms to drive value back into the companies we're investing in. And they're like, we'll use them as our initial wedge so that when someone's like, why are you investing? What should I let you invest in this company? It's like, because I know you want to talk to this guy and this guy's one of our good friends and I can make that, happen for you. But once we're in the door, we'll like provide, all sorts of value. And I always say, and I think it really summed up by this kind of analogy, it's just like, we're trying to be the sixth man of the year on every championship team. Like I'm not trying to be a starter right now. Like I think it's much cooler to come off the bench for a team that wins a ring than it is to be a starter on a team that's not even in the playoffs. And, I think we stand to learn more by being a part of that process.
What you mean by that is you just want to be in great companies, even if it's not like you led the round or something?
Yes, that. But I think like the implications of like being alongside a founder that is building a great company, you get to see what greatness looks like. You get to understand what are they doing that's like I can take and hopefully replicate across other investments. And it's like, you kind of are what you eat. Like if you hang out with shitty people, you're going to be a shitty person probably. You know what I mean? Like if you got to play on the, what was it, like 2002 Lakers or 2001 Lakers, like with Kobe Bryant, like you got to see this man, the way he practiced, the way he approached the sport, like the intensity. You also got to see how Phil Jackson coached the team. And so for me as like a new investor, it's like, that's a huge benefit too. Like obviously the goal is to be a part of great companies so we generate big returns. But I think for us, it's also just an opportunity about learning from the best and seeing what that profile looks like so that we can improve.
Do the two worlds trade with each other in any way, or are you just trying to learn from them in the background? In other words, like, are you in any ways directly using, one sort of network or one sort of special access point in the other, or are you like, actually that's like polluting the sanctity of each and I'm going to learn from both, but they're two different businesses?
Yeah. Let me start with like a story Jimmy Buffett told us. And we were fortunate enough to have an amazing lunch with him before he passed away. And for us, it was an opportunity to ask like an amazing musician about how he got so deeply involved in like the business side of his empire, which was like Margaritaville. And at the time, he was towards the end of his life and he was like, I'm building retirement communities that are like for my fans. So if you're like 80 years old, but you don't want to go to some shitty retirement home, you want to go to the Margaritaville experience retirement home. Like I'm always serving my fans and always thinking about like businesses that are like extensions of who I am. And so, with venture, the more that we spoke to people, whether they were on the investing side or founder side or operating side, the more we felt comfortable about like a lot of the things that made people great, in those spaces were things that were inherently things that made us successful in music. But I think in music, similar to venture, like music is a losing game. Like most of the songs we put out do not go, unless you're Bruno Mars, do not go on to be successful, or at least like the success that, you would talk about in Rolling Stones or Billboard or something like that. But you do learn something very important from every song. You are building, character and history and reps in the gym and pattern recognition. And I think investing is a lot like that. Like everyone I spoke to, which was like hundreds of people, was like, most of your investments are going to go to zero. And I was like, well, I'm comfortable with that. You know what I mean? But like, you have to like learn from that. You can't let it be, like it can't set you back in terms of like your next deal. You have to like immediately get back in the, out there and, stop looking at the scoreboard, just keep your eyes on the field.
Yeah.
And I think that's, something that's really important. And I also think just like in general, like every time we put out a song, we have to like provide context to it. We have to create a story around it. We have to like reinvent ourselves and tell people like why we should pay attention to us to right now. And it's noisier than ever. And I think every company, whether you're in the enterprise B2B space or consumer side, or have that same opportunity and hill to climb. And I think, we can provide like a vantage point that is like very useful and helpful, I think, to founders. That's not like contrarian to what like the tier one Sequoia or, whoever is offering. We just think that like you want the Avengers on your cap table. You want someone that has like a unique perspective or point of view that's looking at things differently, but wants the same outcome. And I think like music and our experiences in that and building our business there and our brand are like super relevant to like how we think about company building.
I'd be curious to hear your reflections on like how you experience like sort of, elite circles in music and entertainment and in tech and investing. You have real time with both.
Yeah.
I'd just be curious, like how similar is it? Are there like some like fundamental differences?
I feel we're like, I don't know why. Like, I mean, we have like plenty of awesome friends in the entertainment space that are, successful, but like, it does feel like either there's like secret groups that I don't know about where everyone's hanging out. Like sometimes you see a wedding and you're like, damn, like, so they all hang out. Like, you know what I mean?
Hollywood,
yeah. You're like, what a cool, I wish I was part of that group. I mean, Drew and I are just like, we've always just kind of like, we love being social, but we're also just like so locked in on like.
You've got a lot to do.
Yeah. We're just like we're, we've never no one lifted us up, you know what I mean? And we kind of have always felt like it's on our shoulders to like figure this out and make the music. And like if we're out gallivanting around or whatever,
networking with celebrities,
like it's just like I don't know, it doesn't feel natural.
Doesn't
to
make
us.
music.
Yeah, it doesn't make music. And I think there's like value in it. Like going to Fashion Week is cool. Like if you love fashion, Drew loves fashion. Like it's an amazing experience. Like I don't care about it that much.
Totally.
So I think we all seek out like things and interests that align with who our personalities are. But like I honestly like. I feel like we align with like the founder tech world a lot more acutely because we're just like, let's, like put hours in the gym and like the harder we work through like our, selves with these problems, the more we'll resolve, we're get out what we put in. And, I feel like we have kind of an imposter syndrome with like the Hollywood side of things. Like I don't feel uniquely special. I feel great about myself, but I don't think like anyone should treat me differently for the things we've done in the past. And it's like, I'm more just like, what have I done, today?
Yeah.
Than I am like what done in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I always think celebrity is a very funny thing because it's like, no matter how famous somebody is, like they're still a regular person. They wake up, they like wash their face in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, and then they like look at me like, oh yeah, I'm George Clooney. I forgot, there must be some experience like that for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, I think like, I'm like the most average. I mean, it's kind of a joke about us. We're like any two white guys can kind of be the Chainsmokers, and there's been plenty.
But then
memes.
you go around the world and people are like, oh, I know who you are, and
totally. And I'm so like grateful for that. Like, I don't think I'm like an ordinary, person, but I think like to that end, like you can't. I don't know. I just don't think that's like how you get. Like, I don't think like elitism and things like that are like how you. If we think we're like the greatest humans in the world, like. Is our music going to begin to feel like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And reflect that and like the relationships we have with people. And I think for us, it's our brand has always been built on like acknowledging everyone in the room. Like some of our superpowers are like, if you walk into a crowded space, we're going to make you feel like you're the biggest VIP here, even if I've never met you before. And I think like that's how I wanted to be treated. I don't know, maybe it's like high school trauma or something, of things. But like that to me is more important than anything. And like, when we were coming up, our music, like we didn't want to be like wearing big diamond chain. I could afford diamond chains and super fancy cars, but it was like, that's not what we're about. Like I wanted to like buy drinks for everyone at the bar.
And I think it can take you away from the art, I think in business, it can take you away from the good stuff there too. Like,
Yeah.
I do just feel like when people get lost in like materiality and ego and status, it is one of the ways people can like lose themselves.
Well, you see it on the founder side too, like, you know, especially
Yes.
nowadays with like some of the rounds these kids are raising and the secondaries they're allowing to take out and the press surrounding them. And I've certainly been involved with some of those companies, and they're not bad people. It's like insecurities or things catching up to you.
Yeah.
At like inopportune times where you're like driving cars you probably shouldn't be driving renting apartments or houses or going out too often, because now like finally people are inviting you places and want to talk about you. And it's like, don't lose sight of thing. You see it happen in LA with young artists all the time. It's like they write a big song, they move to LA, they're like girls that want to take you out, you're going to clubs playing your music, and then suddenly you've been in the studio for 1 or 2 days, and now there's a huge pressure on you, and you're not honestly really sure what you should be doing. And I think for us, we were just like we're still living the dream, even though, you know, we're not going out every night, but we're like, this is what we wanted to do the whole time. Why are we not doing this, you know, right now? And I think, you know, balance is really important. I think, like, you know, that doesn't mean to say that you should, like, this 996 shit is the path to success, but like, I don't blame anyone for having those things. Like, we're all kind of the circumstances of like products of our environment, but it is a shame when you see it. But I also always understand when people are going through that.
Yeah. It's like, somebody recently said to me that I think stuck with me, that just like money and power, fame, like that whole sort of sphere of things, it doesn't necessarily corrupt, but it will definitely make more potent whatever natural inclinations you have.
Totally.
And obviously everybody has like light and dark inclinations.
Someone was like saying, like, I always ask someone like, what is more important to them, like money, power, or like fame? And there's like a right, you know what I mean? Like the right answer is just like money. Because like fame is like you're chasing something like egotistical, whereas like I don't know, and I don't know if that's like a fair question to really,
I think understanding what drives people, and you know, there's probably some other things in there. Some people just are like out of that whole game entirely, but I do think, you know, of those three, different people are very driven by different ones.
Totally. I mean, you see it like, I mean, there's no more relevant place to seeing this than going to somewhere like Saint-Tropez in the summer, where it's like you have billionaires that like, you know, can't get into a restaurant. Yeah. Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean they're like, but then Elton John pulls up, who's also probably a billionaire. Yeah. You know, but he's Elton fucking John. Right. You know, he's getting that table. And so like we're all chasing access and relevancy. And I think, you know, in getting to know some of the artists we've worked with and just people that we've met over the course of our time, like everyone is struggling with something. Everyone, it doesn't feel relevant enough. Everyone is like, you know, like even Coldplay, I remember I was like, dude, they sell out 10 Wembleys instantly. Right. Yeah. You know, that's like 600,000, 700,000 tickets. And he's just like, but he wants kids, you know, the next generation.
Seems uncorrupted though, to me.
I think everyone's corrupted on some level. I think he's definitely probably on the lower end spectrum of that. Like he is really principled person and you know, and it's just an amazing guy. But I think we're all still, no matter what you tell yourself, there's like, I don't care. Yeah. We tell the world one thing, but inside there's something else really driving you or keeping you up at night. And I know I feel it myself.
Well, you're in an interesting spot because you've done a lot. You're still young. You've got 2 very good businesses going, and you probably have like a busy decade ahead where it's like you could go a lot of ways. Do you take it as it comes, or are you like you've got a particular mission and a place you want to get everything?
It's important. Like Drew and I probably don't do this enough, where it's like you have a conversation about like, what do we want to do this year? You know what I mean? Like, what do we hope to gain? Like, what is the next, like, are we both on the same page that we want to make and play music for the next 5 years? And you're like, and it's not like surprising the answers we have, but it's like surprising that we haven't had the conversations. You know, you also have to balance your like objectives with the reality of everything. Like music is not a young man's game. Like we both want to have families. Like we definitely can't be, well, you could tour as much as we want right now with kids, but like what kind of impact does that have on the kids, on your relationships with your wife? Like these are all things you have to consider that you maybe don't necessarily have all the answers for right now. I was listening to the David Sandler podcast, and he was like, I only think 24 hours at a time. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know if that's a bad or good thing. Like, good. Yeah, like I think that's a, you know, important way to stay locked in and continue to prioritize the things that are important for you in the short term. But like, you know, you have to like build, like I didn't expect Mantis to be a tier 1 fund off the bat. You know what I mean? I knew it would take 10, 15, 20 years of hard work to get there. So you have to think on those timelines a little bit to get there and understand that, like, you know, we were taking 50K allocations in Fund 1 into great companies because like we understood that's where we sat. Yeah. And it was more important to be in that logo than it was to like be outside. And I think in music, you know, similarly, like where are we investing our time in singles and albums? You know, is it on the show that's the most important thing? Is it, you know, actually pulling out of the market? I mean, we're so available. Like if you want to see us, you can come see Vegas pretty much every weekend. Is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing, but there's a trade-off.
It's a thing, yeah.
You know, it's a trade-off. And so, you know, I think it's just being aware of those things, having those conversations are so critical. I'm lucky to have a partner where you can have, like, even though we're not the same person, we're very more aligned than most people are.
It's incredibly lucky.
Yeah. And you get to, like, you know, he'll say things that I'm like, oh, I wasn't really thinking about it in that context, but that is super relevant. But it scares the shit out of me. I mean, like, you know, my dad died, I think he was like 54, you know, so I'm like only, and he felt so old, like mature to me.
Mine was 67.
Yeah. And it's just a weird context when you like put it in that perspective of like, oh my God, I'm already not far off in this guy. Am I like better shape? Am I better look of more, you know, better looking, more successful? Am I a bigger asshole? Like, will I have left, you know, an impact on the world on some level? But I think you know, you can't lose your mind not being able to control the things you obviously can't control. Yeah. And just like have fun. That's something I think like Drew and I've been saying a lot lately, which is like, to me, like momentum is just the most important thing with anything. And it doesn't necessarily mean like momentum in like our songs are streaming more or making more money this year, or like momentum comes in all different shapes and sizes. And it's like, I want to have fun when we make music in the studio and we talk about planning a tour or what our show looks like. You know, I want to, when we're discussing deals, it's like a lot of it's not fun in the traditional sense, but it's like, damn, we're like in here for this great deal. Like, I can't believe we're, you know, like having these conversations with these people. And I think that to me is like what drives me. You know, it's just like every day you're kind of like, you know, a couple steps forward is like very meaningful when you zoom out in the long run, and try not to get wrapped up in the like hysteria of like, damn, this song failed, you know?
Keeping it something where you're happy to win, not just like sad to lose, I feel like is so important.
100%. I mean, I told you about a deal I'm like freaking stressing out about right now. And I'm like already in my head, I'm like, he's probably going to say no, you know, like, or zero. And I'm like, and what would that make me feel like? And what does that mean for the future? And like, do I want to help this person anymore after this? Like, you know, what kind of, and I'm just like, no, of course I'm going to fucking help this person. And of course I'm going to be bummed out. And of course I'm going to try again the next time. And, you know, but like, also, you know, this guy's answering my text every time I answer. He's not, you know, he could just be like, no, you know, like, totally. And so, you know, I'm an optimist in that sense where it's like, you know, it could be a lot worse.
It's an awesome mindset.
Yeah.
Alex, this is great. I'm going to let you get back to your day. Thanks a ton for doing this with me.
Let's go.
All right.
Hell yeah.
They're watching us.
Yeah. This guy's just fucking zipping around.
He's just trying to watch that.
Yeah.
We'll post in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Dude, I had no idea you had fans like this.
It's crazy. Sorry.